Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. With a wave of his hand, Yunxiao immediately disappeared from the Divine Realm tablet, leaving Imo Xiaochuan to guard his spiritual altar and slowly recover. As long as it was in the Divine Realm tablet, he would be able to sense its every move, and the evil spirit would never be able to rise again. When his divine sense returned to his body in the altar, Yunxiao focused on absorbing the primordial qi, and soon, he recovered all that he had lost. The key was that he was only an 8 stars martial grandmaster. Although it was extremely difficult to make a breakthrough, he recovered very quickly. After his yuan qi recovered to its peak, he suddenly rose into the air and looked at the statue of the Southern Fire golden crystal source. Gao Lin was shocked and hurriedly stood up. Just like him, he curiously looked up from the feet of the statue. Suddenly, his sea of consciousness trembled violently. Before he could see the statue's face, he felt a shiver run through his body and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at it again. He also knew that Yunxiao was a 7th-tier great alchemist and had an extremely strong cultivation base in soul power, which was naturally not something he could compare with. Yunxiao was not feeling well at the moment. He opened his 3 eyes at the same time, all of them turning into crescent moons as he struggled to resist the powerful mental power brought by the woman's face. The space around him had long been deformed, but in the silent altar, an extremely thrilling battle of mental power was happening silently. Yunxiao waved his hands and began to slowly circulate the Great Expansion divine technique to offset the demonic power. His eyes were as clear as water and as sharp as knives, trying to penetrate the layers of fog and see the woman's true face. Even though he had circulated his soul power to the peak, Yunxiao could only see a glimpse of the woman's side profile in the hallucination. Magnet. Even someone as powerful as him couldn't help but be shocked. His entire spiritual altar and sea of consciousness were about to collapse at this moment, and he lost control of his mind. It was a noble and gorgeous beauty that was beyond the imagination of the world. It was just a glimpse of her side profile, but it had already completely surpassed the world's most beautiful woman, Chu Hongyan. At that moment, no matter how strong Yunxiao's self-control was, he finally lost his mind and was completely stunned. Although Gao Lin did not dare to look at the statue, he had been paying attention to Yunxiao's movements. When he saw Yunxiao's gradually lost look, he was startled and hurriedly cried out, gathering his voice and pouring it directly into Yunxiao's ears, trying to wake him up from the daze, but it did not work. Crack. All of a sudden, a cracking sound came from behind him. He turned around in shock and saw a crack on the statue's body. Then, it spread like a spider web and cracked on a large scale. Dong dong dong. From top to bottom, the entire statue suddenly shattered, turning into countless stones of various sizes and falling down. Gao Lin was so frightened that he hurriedly retreated, afraid that there was something strange in the stones that he wouldn't be able to guard against. Yunxiao also gradually regained his consciousness when the statue shattered, but his eyes were still filled with indescribable shock, and he could not come back to his senses for a long time. Young Master Yun, are you alright? Gao Lin flew up and stared at Yunxiao for a while, then said, "What happened just now?" Yunxiao did not seem to hear him. Instead, he stared at the pile of gravel on the ground and muttered to himself in a daze, "That beautiful face shouldn't exist in this world, and it shouldn't be seen by mortals. Could it be that just because I caught a glimpse of her face, she will be destroyed in this world?" His face was actually filled with an indescribable loneliness and dullness. The sound of a poem came out of his mouth as he said, "Who would believe in myriad incarnations? Noble chi and outstanding immortal material, hard to distinguish in the earth. When the jade platform returns, the heavenly abode can be seen clearly." Gao Lin frowned, unable to understand Yunxiao's state of mind at the moment. "Young Master Yun, are you really alright?" Yunxiao shook his head, as if he had lost something in his heart. He knew that the side profile of her face would forever be imprinted in his mind, and he would never forget it. However, only the heavens knew how many years ago this woman had existed. She had long been buried in the endless years, and besides the remains of these statues, there was no trace of her. At this moment, Tan Dijuan had also woken up. Everyone, including Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui, was stunned. Then, they all recalled something, and they stared at the pile of crushed stones in front of them with shock and astonishment. Tiandijuan said, "What's going on? What's wrong with the statue?" Sun Jiming also sucked in a breath of cold air. He propped up his injured body and said in shock, You actually destroyed it? How did you do it?" He recalled the whole process of his mind being taken away, his attack on Yunxiao, and then his defeat by the Calabash warrior. It was hard to imagine how Yunxiao had resisted the statue's soul-taking power. Xiao Minghui also remembered. He glared at Gao Lin with a hint of anger in his eyes. He turned to the hall and frowned. "Where's Mo Xiaochuan?" Putting away his disappointment and listlessness, Yunxiao landed on the ground, picked up a piece of broken stone from the statue, and stared at it for a long time before he said, "The mission is complete. Everything is over. Let's leave." Mission completed? The three of them looked at each other. Like Gao Lin, they had many questions in their hearts, but they couldn't ask. Tiandijuan's eyes suddenly brightened. He stared at the pile of broken stones and exclaimed, "Southern Fire Golden Crystal Essence, so many Southern Fire Golden Crystal Essence." This trip wasn't in vain. After he was shocked, he had been sealed by Yunxiao, so his power was not damaged at all. He rushed to the pile of crushed stones with an extremely greedy look on his face, as if he wanted to swallow them all. The other three people's faces also changed drastically. They only reacted now. Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. At this moment, the two of them were seriously injured, so they would probably be at a disadvantage if they fought. Yunxiao looked at Tiandijuan coldly and snorted, "What, Sect Master Tan plans to move all of them away alone?" Tiandijuan realized that he had lost his self-control, so he laughed embarrassedly, "Of course not. These Southern Fire Golden Crystal sources could be considered a huge fortune. Everyone, let's discuss how to divide it." As for those who didn't come down, he didn't need to give them. "I let them cultivate on the altar for a few hours, so this trip was not in vain." His words directly excluded all the itinerant martial artists. As long as these Southern Fire Golden Crystal essences were kept, the surging Yuan Qi and Fire-type energy on the altar would also disappear. "No way!" yelled Gao Lin with a frown. "Your sect sent 3 people here, but only 1 from my Chamber of Commerce. Unless you give me half." "I'll give you half. Old geezer Chu, you're courting death." Tiandijuan clenched his 5 fingers, and a hazy qi appeared in his hand. It seemed like he would kill someone if he didn't agree with what he said. "Stop acting all high and mighty in front of me," Gao Lin sneered. "I wonder who was lying down there like a dead pig just now. If I hadn't shown you mercy, I would have killed you with a single palm strike." Tiandijuan's expression changed slightly. What Gao Lin said was true. When he was lying on the ground, he could have killed him with 1 palm strike, but he didn't. He didn't know what Gao Lin was thinking. If it were him, he would most likely kill the other party with 1 palm. Gao Lin was also filled with resentment. How could he not want this? If Yunxiao had not stopped them, the 3 of them would have been beheaded by now. Now that there were 3 more people out of nowhere to split the Southern Fire Golden Crystal Essence, just thinking about it made his heart burst into flames. "I don't care how you divide them," Yunxiao said with a smile. "I'll take half of these crystal sources." After he finished speaking, he began to collect them, not caring if the others objected. "No." The 4 of them shouted almost at the same time, and their expressions changed drastically. Tiandijuan rushed up in anger and slapped him with his palm. He shouted, "Stop. What right do you have to take half of what everyone has?" At Yunxiao's will, the Calabash King Kong took a step forward and threw out a King Kong fist, clashing with Tiandijuan's palm. A huge amount of qi burst out, forcing Tiandijuan to step back. The qi and blood in his body were boiling. He was shocked again and again. He looked at the gored little King Kong with disbelief and shock. Although he had seen the power of this thing before, he guessed that it was only at the strength of an ordinary revered martial artist. He had guessed it right. He had also seen it with his palm just now. However, the material used to make this thing was a kasaya. His palm strike, which was at the peak of martial venerable realm, had broken the opponent's Vajra fist and rebounded his energy back to the opponent, but it only forced the calabash little Vajra to take 2 steps back. It had completely withstood the attack with its body, and as if nothing had happened, it took another 2 steps forward and returned to its original place to protect Yunxiao. Could it be that this thing can't be killed? An unbelievable and strange idea came to Tiandijuan's mind. Ordinary puppets, no matter how strong they were, would lose all their spiritual chi and power after being attacked, just like profound-level weapons. However, the calabash little King Kong didn't seem to have such signs at all. Just like a martial artist, it seemed to be able to recover its vital chi. Was there such a puppet in the world? He was stunned for a moment. He didn't know whether to continue or not. Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui were also injured, so they didn't dare to court death. They could only stare and stomp their feet anxiously. Gao Lin also had some concerns. Mo Xiaochuan's inexplicable disappearance had made him feel an unspeakable tightness in his heart. Now, he could only believe Yunxiao's promise to him, and he did not dare to offend him too much. All of them had their own thoughts, so they could only watch as Yunxiao collected them. Yunxiao, on the other hand, ignored his expression and the objections of the crowd and continued to collect the Southern Fire golden crystal sources. Soon, he had collected nearly half of them, and only then did he stop and say, "You guys can split the rest." The 4 of them stared at the remaining small portion, their hearts bleeding. Tiandijuan shouted and rushed forward, "All of these belong to my Big Dipper sect." He released a misty aura from his body, which enveloped the crystal sources in an attempt to collect them all. Gao Lin's pupils suddenly shrank, and he suddenly flew down, smashing the brick in his hand as he angrily shouted, "Old man, get lost. Don't even think about touching a single crystal source." His brick enlarged in the air and came crashing down like a small mountain. It was impressive. The 2 of them were both at the peak of the martial honor realm. After adjusting his breathing, Gao Lin's strength had also recovered, and they were soon engaged in a battle. Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui's expressions changed slightly. They were seriously injured and couldn't participate in this kind of battle. What was worse was that if they were to take it based on strength, the 2 of them might not even be able to get a piece of the Southern Fire golden crystal essence. "Young Master Yun, we only came down to the altar to help you save your life, and we were hit by the soul-sucking spell," Sun Jiming said. Although he didn't help much, at least he had good intentions, but he was seriously injured. "If we can't get a piece of the Southern Fire golden crystal essence because of this, Brother Xiao and I will be too disappointed." He knew that there was no hope of snatching it with his strength, so he began to play the bitter card. Besides, although Yunxiao was extremely arrogant and domineering, through his observation, he was not unreasonable in fact. He was the kind of person who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. As expected, Yunxiao frowned slightly and said, "Originally, this treasure should belong to everyone. Everyone should have a share. Why don't I divide it? What do you think of it, President Chen and Sect Master Tan?" Gao Lin and Tiandijuan could ignore the existence of Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui, but they could not ignore Yunxiao's existence. As soon as they heard that, they immediately stopped fighting and cried out, "How do we divide it?" Yunxiao smiled and said, "Of course, I won't give back the half I took. As for the other half, it's a little less than half." Tiandijuan corrected him angrily. His eyes were almost spitting fire. "The Big Dipper sect is the leader of all the sects in Manhua City," Yunxiao laughed. "Don't worry about this little gain or loss. You should broaden your horizons. Adding this little bit of Southern Fire golden crystal source won't be of much benefit to your Big Dipper sect's strength. On the contrary, if the distribution isn't equal and it causes dissatisfaction among the other forces, it will have the opposite effect and you'll be making yourself a strong enemy." Tiandijuan's face changed slightly, thinking that Yunxiao's words seemed to make some sense. However, how could he spit out all the benefits in front of him? He could not refute it, so he could only sneer coldly. As for the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce, it is one of the 7 major chambers of commerce in the world, Yunxiao continued. It has vast resources, so how can it lack these things? President Qian, even if you take all of these Southern Fire Golden Crystal Essence away, I'm afraid you won't be able to be promoted any further, right? Gao Lin was stunned, frowning as he pondered. Yunxiao was right. As the president of the branch in South Fire City, he was now qualified for the highest position. The thing that had stopped him from advancing was not his business performance but his cultivation. If he could not advance to the martial supreme realm, he would still be the president of the Manhwa branch no matter how good his performance was. Yunxiao's words made both of them fall into deep thought. Since that's the case, why should we fight for the resources that aren't that important? These Southern Fire Golden Crystal Essences could be distributed to small sects and even rogue cultivators who needed them. They would be deeply grateful and wouldn't damage the status of the Big Dipper sect and the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce in Nanhua City, nor would it damage the status of the two of them. In my opinion, the two of you should just take a few of these ores as a token and give the rest to those who need them. Tandijuan and Gao Lin were not the only ones who were lost in thought. Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui were also stunned by his words, and they were both calculating the gains and losses in their hearts. The four of them suddenly felt the boredom of snatching these resources. They did not lack these cultivation resources. The first thing a sect had to face was not the bottleneck of resources, but the bottleneck of talents. The ultimate goal was to become a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens. If he were to lose his life again for such a small profit, or if he were to make many great enemies, it would indeed be unwise, or even stupid. The few of them looked at Yunxiao with meaningful eyes. They all thought to themselves, this person is extremely intelligent and talented. To have such achievements and insight at such a young age, he would definitely be a great figure whose name would shake the world in the future. It would be better to sell this person out and make a good relationship. Young Master Yun is right, Gao Lin said. Then let's leave it to you. I have no objections. Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui also expressed their willingness to obey Yunxiao's arrangement. Seeing that things had come to this, Tandijuan did not want to offend Yunxiao, nor did he want to occupy these things and make the former alliance turn against him, which would isolate the Big Dipper sect. Furthermore, he had never forgotten about the lightning transformation divine technique. He also said, then, young Master Yun, I have no objection. Seeing that the four of them all agreed, Yunxiao nodded and said, very good. Then call the people outside to come in together. I've promised before that anyone who saves people with me will have a share. I can't go back on my word. With a light tap, the Southern Fire Golden Crystal sources on the ground were immediately under his control. They slowly flew up along with his body and out of the altar. Although Yunxiao had taken more than half of it, the statue was originally huge, and what was left was still an amazing amount of wealth. As soon as he appeared in the sky outside, countless crystal sources followed behind him, immediately drawing the attention and screams of everyone. Furthermore, as these Southern Fire Golden Crystal sources left the altar, the people on the altar immediately felt their yuan qi disappear. They no longer felt yuan power flooding into their bodies like before. They immediately understood what was going on, and their expressions changed drastically. Yunxiao and the other four were hovering in the air, with Southern Fire Gold Crystal source ores of various sizes floating around them. There were thousands of them, and they illuminated the sky with a fiery red light. Tandijuan looked at the shock and unwillingness in the eyes of the people below and said, everyone, Mo Xiaochuan's matter has been resolved. All the Southern Fire Golden Crystal sources were gathered here. After our discussion, we've decided that young Master Yun will personally preside over the distribution, and no one is allowed to object. What? Let Li Yunxiao distribute them? Everyone was taken aback. Although Yunxiao's strength was obvious to all, how could the sect leaders trust such a young man? This was over 1,000 pieces of Southern Fire Golden Crystal sources, their value was immeasurable. The crystal sources before everyone's eyes were even more than the number of crystal sources that had been excavated in Southfire City's mines over the years. This was an astronomical amount of wealth, yet they were actually giving it to a young man to distribute. What they did not know was that Yunxiao had already taken most of it, or they would have gone even crazier and even wanted to kill him. Only some martial honors gradually fell into deep thought after the shock, thinking about the interests behind it. Soon, they understood that letting Yunxiao distribute the loot was undoubtedly the best choice. And if there was any resentment caused by unfair distribution, it would all be transferred to Yunxiao. Han Qian was also looking up at the sky in shock. Although she was also tempted by the crystals, she was more shocked by how Yunxiao had managed to make all the forces accept his distribution willingly. After the noise below died down, Gao Lin said, "Young Master Yun, let's start." Yunxiao nodded as he looked down and said, "As I said earlier, anyone who saves people with me will have a share. Although you didn't enter the altar, you came with me. It's a kind gesture, so everyone has a share." Voila. The cultivators below were all extremely excited, especially those rogue cultivators. They had never thought that they would get their own share from the beginning and were all looking forward to it. This time, they were all excited and unable to calm down. Yunxiao took out 5 of the largest stones from the thousands of stones, and they were immediately cut into hundreds of small crystal sources by his finger. Then, he pointed at them and threw them down. Although the crystal sources are small, one for each of you is enough to exchange for hundreds of millions of primeval stones, which will last you 10 years of cultivation. All the itinerant cultivators flew into a frenzy and tried their best to grab the fist-sized crystal source. Although the shape was different, the size was shockingly the same. This kind of control was already enough to make people admire him. "Thank you, young Master Yun. Thank you, young Master Yun, for bestowing me with the source." In an instant, words of gratitude rang out on the altar. Everyone also understood that no matter how loudly they thanked him, the other party would not take it to heart. Even after today's matter was over, he would not recognize them. However, he firmly remembered this favor in his heart. Under the powerful aura of Yunxiao and the other 5, none of the sects and forces dared to move. They just watched quietly with envious looks in their eyes. After the itinerant cultivators were given their share, Yunxiao said, "The Big Dipper sect and the Thunder Wind Chamber of Commerce are the ones who contributed the most in this treasure hunt. Without the Thunder Wind Chamber of Commerce's recording needle and the Big Dipper sect's treasure hunting map, you wouldn't have been able to come here. Therefore, the Big Dipper sect and the Thunder Wind Chamber of Commerce will each get half of the remaining." With a wave of his hand, the thousands of Southern Fire golden crystal essence crystals were split into 2. He pushed one half to Earth Monarch Tan and Gao Lin and said, "The 2 of you, keep it well." The 4 leaders all frowned slightly, each having different opinions on this distribution. However, he had already made his point, so it was not appropriate to refute it. Besides, letting the Big Dipper sect and the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce take half of it might be the best way to distribute it. If they fell out, not only would they not be able to obtain a single crystal source, but they would also suffer heavy losses and even lose their lives. After thinking through this, the rest of the people had no more objections. Tan Dijuan and Gao Lin were also expressionless. They both nodded slightly and took away their crystal sources after expressing their gratitude. "The rest will be divided into 2 parts, Yunxiao said. The local sects will have 1, and the various chambers of commerce will have 1. He added, "The Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce is also a part of the Chamber of Commerce. Naturally, we need a copy. Do you have any objections?" Han Qian was stunned, and she felt a warm feeling in her heart. "Of course." Gao Lin laughed. Since he had given Yunxiao so much face, he naturally did not care about the distribution of the crystal sources. Moreover, it didn't harm the interests of the Thunder Wind Chamber of Commerce. It was just that the other chambers of commerce would share a little less. The people of the Chamber of Commerce didn't dare to say no, they all agreed repeatedly, praising that the distribution was good, fair, and everyone was convinced. In that case, Yunxiao said, "Let's all take our own things and leave this place." "Yes." Everyone shouted in unison, especially those itinerant martial artists. Each and every one of them was high-spirited and full of spirit. In an instant, hundreds of people rose into the air and flew toward the exit. Yunxiao turned his head slightly and glanced at the altar that was gradually disappearing in front of him. He sighed slightly in his heart as he thought of the side profile of her face that could topple the world. Soon, everyone left the central red land of chaos. As if affected by the altar's change, after returning to the surroundings of the Ring River, he felt that the chaotic qi in the center had also begun to gradually dissipate. And all the passageways opened up, never to be moved again. Led by Yunxiao and Tiandang, they all came out of the underground cave. When they saw the sunlight, they felt the joy of escaping death and cheered. If you head north, you'll be able to reach Southfire City. You don't need to go in the opposite direction, Gao Lin said. The way here was very difficult, and with the muddy demonic beasts there, no one had the courage to go back the way they came. After hearing Gao Lin's words, the itinerant martial artists expressed their thanks and flew north. Right now, their greatest wish was to quickly sell off the Southern Fire golden crystal essence in their hands, so that they could exchange it for enough primeval stones and then find a hidden place to cultivate. If you want to exchange for the crystal sources in your hands, you can look for the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce at any time, said Gao Lin. I'm sure you'll be satisfied with the price. Tiandang sneered, After what happened, people hate your Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce. They won't work with you anymore. I'm afraid that the business of the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce will take a dive. Those who left all received benefits, Gao Lin replied sarcastically. They're all very grateful. How can they have any resentment? Those who had resentment were already dead. On the other hand, your Big Dipper sect's actions along the way have truly chilled one's heart. Even if you have powerful martial strength, so what? The hearts of the people have already been lost, and you're not far from destruction. Tiandang humphed and said, disciples of the Big Dipper sect, follow me back to report. More than 10 of them had come out, but none of them had been killed. Only a few of them had suffered light injuries, which was the best result. Moreover, obtaining a large amount of Southern Fire golden crystal essence was also a great merit. There was no benefit in staying here any longer, so he left directly. As for Yunxiao's thunder transformation skill, he had already made an agreement in his heart. Naturally, he would let Zhang Linghua take it in person. At least, he was more and more uncertain about winning against Yunxiao. Before Mei Dong left, she looked back at Yunxiao and said, Young Master Yun, are you going to Yufeng City? When will you be leaving? Tomorrow, Yunxiao said. See you tomorrow then, Mei Dong said with a nod. Don't worry, Dong, Yunxiao said with a smile. You can cultivate in the Big Dipper sect. You don't have to send me off. Mei Dong said, I'm not sending you off. I have something to do. It's not convenient to go into detail now, I'll look for young Master Yun tomorrow. Yunxiao frowned, not knowing what she was talking about, but he answered quickly. All right. All you need to do is come to the Purple Cloud Trade Union. Mei Dong nodded her head and bowed lightly before leaving with the rest of the sect. Everyone, I'll also take my leave. President Min, Yunxiao said, I'd like to borrow the teleportation array tomorrow. Is it convenient for you? It's convenient, of course it's convenient. Young Master Yun, you can come over anytime, said Gao Lin very enthusiastically. I'll immediately have someone check it when I return and prepare a large number of vitality stones, waiting for young Master Yun's arrival at any time. Every teleportation formation consumed a large amount of primordial stones, especially long-distance teleportations like this. Thank you for your trouble, Yunxiao said. I'll go back with Han Xian first, and I'll look for you when I need you. After he finished speaking, he followed Han Xian and flew towards the direction of Manhwa City, leaving the people of the Chamber of Commerce still in the same place, not knowing what to think. The matter of the treasure was over, but this mine was indeed a rare and excellent Southern Fire golden crystal mine, and it would probably stir up another storm. But that was no longer Yunxiao's business. The two of them quickly flew back to Manhwa City and entered the Purple Cloud Trade Union.